Is Netflix's latest release just a copycat of Jordan Peele's work? I'm gonna unpack this for you right now. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Auzia and I'm a storyteller. So I noticed 4 things about this film that may have been borrowed from Jordan Peele. This is your one and only warning. I am going to give you the full plot, discuss those 4 things, and then we'll have a deeper conversation about whether it borrows too much or if it's just independent enough to be respected as its own creation. So the film opens and we meet a character by the name of Cheryl. She's very distraught on the phone with her sister, explaining how she's tired of being discriminated against at her job. Her sister, a character that we never actually see in the film, is not very empathetic. She basically responds like, look, it's rough out here for everybody. She then asks Cheryl what time she will be coming over later that day. We also hear the sound of a baby crying in the background. Feeling defeated and invalidated, Cheryl tells her sister she'll be over around 5 o'clock. But as an audience, we know right away this isn't true because we see Cheryl pack her bags and escape for a new life. Years later, we see that she's found that new life. She's married with biracial children, nice neighborhood, great job. She's conformed everything about herself to be as white as she could, including changing her name to Neve, which is a Latin word meaning snow, bright, or radiant. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, she starts being haunted by these black figures. A man that's now a janitor at the school where she's head mistress, and a young woman who works for her husband. We start to see her unravel mentally, and it all blows up at a charity event where it's finally revealed to everyone that these people are actually her children that she left behind years ago. Desperate to keep her life as it is, she offers them money to go away. This proves to be a terrible mistake as it results in them lashing out, breaking into her home, causing the death of her husband and the trauma of her other kids. When a delivery guy shows up at the door during the break-in, Cheryl seizes the opportunity and escapes once again, leaving all of her children in search for a new life. Okay, so here are the 4 similarities that I see with Jordan Peele's work. Number 1, the film uses tight framing to express terror and discomfort. This technique can be seen all through Get Out and Us. In Get Out, it's often used to display when a character has no soul or when there's something sinister behind the eyes. The way Jordan does it is very calculated. Every time we see it, it has a function. In the movie Us, we see it with the tethered family. It just makes everything feel so intense and uncomfortable, and it just gave an overall feeling of uneasiness for the audience. This technique is implemented in pretty much every scene that's meant to be haunting in this film. And something about the way the character Carl was shot felt so similar to the groundskeeper in Get Out. The second way this film may have borrowed from Jordan Peele is the use of color and objects to foreshadow important elements of the story. So early on in Get Out, we see that the character Chris has a picture on the wall of a white woman wearing a black mask. It's clearly being used as an object to foreshadow the theme of the white characters longing for the best parts of the black experience. The kidnapper in the film is a white man wearing a black mask. I remember in one scene, the character Rose is dressed like Waldo. Her wardrobe suggests that she's this chameleon. She's this danger hiding in plain sight. It's very foreshadowing for who that character will later become. And of course, we have the symbolism of the deer, the cotton, how many of the characters wore red, symbolizing the danger they imposed and the lives they were willing to take. The Strays definitely borrows this technique, but it's way less subtle. It just hits you over the head with it. For starters, the colors red and yellow are all over this film. Yellow representing the innocence of the character Dion, red representing the threat they would be to Cheryl's new life. It starts more subtle, but as you get into the movie, red pills, red furniture, red walls, yellow car accident with a woman who has red hair. It's like, okay, I get it. You are being deep. I get it. And as for the foreshadowing objects, Carl's jacket, the car magnet, board games, the mirror, all unnoticeable in scene 1, but would each make an additional appearance that would impact the story. Even though it was a little overbearing throughout the film, I do think that this kind of storytelling helped to justify some of the outrageousness that came toward the end of the film. The third comparison I would make about this film to Jordan Peele is the use of music to foreshadow the story. Childish Gambino's Redbone, as well as the haunting opening by Michael Abels, lay out the story of Get Out before we even finish the opening credits. Very similar, music plays a huge role in foreshadowing this story. So I want you to think back to the beginning of the film, right after she runs away from her past, and now her new home, her new family is introduced to the audience, and we see that she's doing her beauty routine, right? During that beauty routine, there is a very important song playing, and it is one of the main songs in the opera Madame Butterfly. Madame Butterfly tells the story of a young Japanese girl who falls in love with an American soldier. Shortly after marrying her, he heads back to America, but not before promising that he will one day return. In his absence, the young bride gives birth to a son and proceeds to wait for him to come back as he promised, despite those around her saying she's been abandoned. Finally, the soldier does return, but this time he brings his American wife, and they reveal that they're here to take her son and raise him as their own back in America. Stricken with grief, the Asian bride commits suicide. Okay, now how does this relate to the Strays? My take is that the young Asian woman represents these lost children who, after all these years, still had some hope that their mother would still want them. These kids were committed to finding their mom and really being a family. And I know that that sounds crazy when you look at how the story ends, but if you think about it, they had better intentions than how the movie ended up. I remember one scene where Dion says to her brother, "Oh, maybe we should have brought something." And he turns around and says, "Well, we brought ourselves." Think about that. Why would she say that? Why would she say we should have brought something? I don't think their original intentions were sinister. It's like they found their mother and they wanted answers, but they also wanted to be loved. And that's just like the young Asian girl. She wanted to be loved. She thought she had a husband. Even though he said he was coming back and he never really came back for her, she never gave up hope until the very end. Remember, Cheryl told her family she was coming back. She wrote that note on the fridge. And so now we can tie it into the suicide part of Madame Butterfly, where even though the kids didn't commit suicide, they kind of were willing to throw their lives away to break into this home and potentially cause acts of violence. So is it a direct story? No, but the themes are definitely there. I think the director was trying to warn us that she left something behind. Even if we had missed all of the little clues in the beginning of the movie that she had left something important, I think that that song was supposed to be a huge indication of, hey, there's something else going on here. The fourth comparison I would make to Jordan Peele, and honestly, this one is almost too close to deny, the theme of tethering, which was a huge component of Jordan Peele's Us, is too spot on. And listen, I hate those people that sees a problem and then don't present a solution. I don't know how the director could have not made it this way and it still tell the same story. I'm a little stumped when it comes to that, but the connection between this duplicate family and this duplicate family, it just felt too close. But shout out to that actress. I'm gonna put her name right here because I don't know it off the top of my head. The scene where she's hanging out with her sister in the hotel room and she just kind of snaps because she sees, wow, this girl done had the life that I was supposed to have. My mother left me for you. It was an explosive scene, but it just felt too much like in Us when Lupita's tethered character goes on this tangent about how her entire life we long to live above and we want to have the life that you want. Like, out of all the things that I mentioned, this is the one thing where I really just feel like you stole that from Jordan Peele. But does this film borrow so much from Jordan Peele that we shouldn't respect it as its own creation? My answer to that is no, and here's why. First, nothing in film is new. As awesome as Jordan Peele is as a director and writer, even he has borrowed elements from other filmmakers. Even though I credit him for bringing exceptionality to the Black psychological thriller space. What sets The Strays apart from me when I compare it to a Get Out or Us is that the director Nathaniel White was brave enough to borrow show the eerie storytelling of Jordan Peele for the first half of the film, but then later he blurs the lines between good and evil, protagonist and antagonist in the second half of the film. And he actually does foreshadow this quite nicely. Take this frame, for example. This shot would be just as menacing, if not more, without Carl's reflection. However, his reflection is intentionally left in the frame to foreshadow that there are two sides to every story. There's her perspective of being haunted and his perspective of longing to be seen. I think moments like this are great examples of original storytelling. Real quick, some final thoughts about the film. My mom actually brought this one up. What was the point of the manhood stuff between the brothers? What was that? So my mom was thinking the whole time that big brother making the little brother a man was gonna show up at the end of the film and somehow the younger brother would stand up to the older brother, but that didn't happen. So I don't know what other function that part of the story had other than trying to show that the big brother was actually trying to bond with the little brother. And maybe that was the only function. I don't know. Y'all let me know what you think. The black belt on the black door. This one puzzled me. This one puzzled me a lot. So of course we have this accusatory tone of Cheryl saying that I had to leave because Michael was abusive and y'all don't remember how bad it was. And I thought maybe the belt symbolized that she was telling the truth. But then I thought the only adult we see being mean to a kid is actually her when she tries to whoop her son with a shoe. So I'm like, is she lying about that? I think she lied about that. Maybe she was the abuser the whole time. I mean, it kind of would make sense. Let me know what y'all think about that too. Last thing, I did see some people comparing this movie to Passing, which is another film on Netflix about a black woman who's passing for a white woman, married to a white man. Go check that out. It's actually very good as well. I do not see that comparison. I honestly believe that this movie is not about race. Yes, race is used, but it's not about race. Cheryl left both families, her white passing family and her black family. So that suggests to me that it wasn't so much about the self-hatred of blackness, even though, again, those elements are in the film. I just think that those elements of self-hatred of blackness were used to tell a different story. Whereas in Passing, self-hatred is the story. I think Cheryl was willing to be and do and say whoever she needed to be and do and say for her own survival. And that's why this is different. If she felt like being a biker girl would get her the life she wanted, she would have been a biker girl. If she thought being a dark African would have given her the life she wanted, she would have become a dark African. I think it was like, this is where I found the things I wanted, and so I had to conform. I try to make my children conform. Oh shoot, y'all find out who I am? Oh, I gotta get the hell out of Dodge again and go take on a new identity. I could easily see this going on. It kind of reminds me of You on Netflix. It all blows up and he moves on to a different town, becomes somebody else and adapts and changes, becomes who he needs to be to tell a different story. I could easily see that if Nathaniel White was not done telling this story, we could have a whole new movie of her being somebody completely different. So this is a film about a narcissist, a woman who never should have been a mom, obviously. I think that a lot of people who deal with abandonment issues will be affected by this film. Again, I don't know. Y'all let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please be sure to check out my other content. If there is nothing else, I will see you next Sunday. Be blessed.